Well, I don't think silver is going to evolve. I think it's going to just appear suddenly as the preferred money over gold in the initial explosion post endgame. If you picture the analogy, let's say, chas v'shalom, God forbid, a nuclear bomb falls on a major city, and then all the surrounding areas have nuclear fallout, and all communications are down, or there's a Carrington event, solar storm, and all communications just suddenly go down. Then the evolution is not gradual; it's sudden. Sort of like what Ernest Hemingway said about bankruptcy, right? It happens gradually and then suddenly. So silver will appear suddenly. We will suddenly be at the natural monetary ratio of 15 to 1. I don't know why the natural monetary ratio is 15 to 1. All I can tell you is that historically it's usually around there when silver and gold are both freely exchangeable for other things and government isn't involved. That's just what it is. I don't think about the central bank gold purchases because I don't see them happening. I don't know what anyone's talking about.
Right.
If someone were to show me some data, I would say, okay, all I see is that people are quoting other people saying that there's a whole bunch of central bank gold purchases, but I don't see any data that central banks are actually purchasing gold. So if I can talk about it theoretically, what
Right.
it means, if central banks are purchasing gold, which I don't think they're doing, please share in the comments below a link to the cumulative stash of gold, and maybe it's gone up a little bit, but since 1950, it hasn't gone anywhere. So what is anybody talking about? Theoretically, if central banks are buying a whole bunch of gold, yes, that would affect the gold price in dollar terms because it would be a source of demand, but it won't that won't save any currency. If central bank A is buying gold, it doesn't save its currency. It has nothing. It doesn't have any impact on its currency or on the value of its currency because everyone who uses that, whatever currency that is, knows that the central bank is only playing a trading game. Right?
Right.
The most obvious, the only way gold can save the value of a currency is if the central bank says, you know what, we bought a bunch of gold, and now we're gonna stop printing. We're gonna let the banks collapse, and anyone who has any unit of our liability can now exchange it for uh, pro rata for this amount of gold, however they divide it,
Right.
and they have to divide. So that would save a currency, but central banks don't buy gold to solidify their currencies. They buy gold as fuel to sell when their currencies are dying, and that will only kill them faster. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
the only example I need to point to is Turkey, and you know what I mean.
A currency cannot be saved merely by acquiring gold. It can only be stabilized if a central bank stops printing, allows unsound institutions to fail, and offers genuine convertibility into precious metal. Historically, banks have used gold holdings as ammunition to sell during crises, not to anchor their currencies. When authorities abandon discipline, gold becomes a liquidation tool rather than a foundation. Past experiments show that without transparency and convertibility, gold reserves are symbolic at best. Meanwhile, selling gold to defend a falling currency often accelerates the collapse, creating a downward spiral that exposes the system's fragility.
Well, I don't think silver is going to evolve. I think it's going to just appear suddenly as the preferred money over gold in the initial explosion post endgame. If you picture the analogy, let's say, chas v'shalom, God forbid, a nuclear bomb falls on a major city, and then all the surrounding areas have nuclear fallout, and all communications are down, or there's a Carrington event, solar storm, and all communications just suddenly go down. Then the evolution is not gradual; it's sudden. Sort of like what Ernest Hemingway said about bankruptcy, right? It happens gradually and then suddenly. So silver will appear suddenly. We will suddenly be at the natural monetary ratio of 15 to 1. I don't know why the natural monetary ratio is 15 to 1. All I can tell you is that historically it's usually around there when silver and gold are both freely exchangeable for other things and government isn't involved. That's just what it is. So we've seen that ratio reappear three times in the 20th century. In 1919, post the World War I inflation. After that, deflation of all that money because we were still on a more of a hard gold standard at that time. So the sudden deflation put all the purchasing power in silver. It's not that necessarily that the dollar price of silver went up that much. It's just that relative to gold, silver went way up, right?
Hmm.
Who cares about the dollar? Also happened in 1960 and in 1968 with the fall of the London gold bull suddenly.
Monetary shifts rarely unfold gradually, they strike suddenly. Silver historically reasserts its monetary role during moments of system stress, snapping back toward a ratio of roughly 15:1 against gold. This pattern appeared in 1919 after wartime inflation, again in the 1960s during the collapse of the London gold pool, and dramatically between 1979 and 1980. These moves weren't based on industrial demand, they were monetary recalibrations triggered by distrust in paper claims. When confidence in the dollar falters, silver becomes the natural bridge to reprice gold, especially when traditional financial plumbing breaks down or liquidity dries up.
And then things were okay for a few years, and then all of a sudden, from like 1979 to 1980, in a space of about 6 months, all of a sudden, silver went down to 15 to 1 again.
Right.
Why is that? The simple answer is that the dollar is a gold derivative. It used to be a silver derivative, but from 1873 to 1971, it was exclusively a gold derivative. And now it's still a gold derivative, but it's a gold derivative with a whole bunch of inflated crap on top of it.
Hmm.
Right? When people say that we went off the gold standard in 1971 and gold no longer represents a dollar, don't you know that Nixon closed the gold window? Blah 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 blah. Yeah, I think I know. Like I've been in this space for like long enough to know that yeah, he did close the gold window, but that doesn't mean that dollar is not a gold derivative. It just means that the dollar is a gold derivative at a fake gold price plus a whole bunch of debt that plugs in that fakeness. And when the debt itself is realized to be fake because it can't be paid back, then the fakeness goes out of the debt and all of that stuff goes back into the real gold price. But when there is a breakdown of trust in the dollar as a gold derivative,
Hmm.
then the only way to divide gold is with silver because
Right.
dollars are no longer trusted. So there's just going to be a sudden invasion of gold into the monetary system, back into the monetary system. It could happen within hours, within days, within weeks. I don't see any more than that. All of a sudden, like when you see that everything's getting messed up and banks are falling and this and that and everything's falling apart and electricity is starting to go down, whatever it is, that all of a sudden the silver price is going to not just climb, it's going to explode in terms of purchasing power, and the dollar price isn't even going to matter at all.
Even after the 1971 closure of the gold window, the dollar still indirectly reflects gold's value, just through layers of leverage and unsustainable debt. The modern financial system operates on what is essentially a synthetic gold price, propped up by credit expansion. When the debt pyramid becomes impossible to service, its artificial value evaporates, and gold absorbs the pricing power that had been suppressed. In such moments, trust in paper claims vanishes rapidly. With dollars no longer acting as reliable intermediaries, silver becomes the only practical tool to divide gold's value back into everyday transactional units.
Yes, they are. That's true. If they're buying gold, it means they're selling their own currency for gold, which means they're weakening their currency.
Yeah.
So whether they buy gold or sell gold, it doesn't make a difference for the currency. It makes a difference for the gold price in nominal currency terms. But then again, who cares? The Fed restarting QE, and then the Fed, and then some kind of banking horror show like 2023, except bigger.
Right.
Remember the 2023 regional banking crisis uh, ripened or developed in a few hours, right? It was like
Wow.
one day. It was one day. Nobody was suspecting anything, and then the next hour, Silicon Valley Bank stopped existing.
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
that,
It's
that
pretty
was it.
crazy.
That was it. So something like that. The next banking crisis should be it because it's going to spread everywhere, and we're seeing cracks in these little bankruptcies in private credit what do they call it? The car parts company. What was it called? I don't even remember. There's so many like little things going on that I can't remember anything. Um, but the Fed moving, very short-term interest rates ticking up, QE restarting, banking crisis cutting to zero, and that's what's going to happen, and probably somewhere in that order, and
Yeah.
then it should be over. I'd say it's more than plausible and more than likely. I think it's nearly a certainty. It's not a logical certainty because theoretically, every central bank could say we're going to allow our banking systems to collapse, and then see what happens. But none of them are going to do that, so they're just going to be printing money, and then it'll be hyperinflation.
Right.
So the answer is, what do I see about debt levels in the next 10 years? Debt levels will go to near zero because the debt will be devalued to zero, and so the value of devalued debt is nothing, and there will be no debt because all the debt will be gone.
Financial breakdowns now happen in hours, not months. The 2023 regional banking crisis proved how quickly confidence can collapse. A future crisis, amplified by higher rates and corporate insolvencies, could force central banks into renewed money printing, triggering runaway inflation. If authorities refuse to allow banks to fail, hyperinflation becomes the default path. In such a scenario, debt doesn't just decline, it effectively evaporates. Its purchasing power collapses to zero, and the global financial structure resets. Gold revalues, silver surges, and paper claims once considered assets become historical relics of a vanished era.
I don't know. I could be chasing my own tail here in terms of what I haven't changed my thoughts about Bitcoin, but something something about the way that it's related to on social media, something about the way that Michael Saylor has been talking. There's some kind of sense, maybe I'm just getting a sense of that these chatbot armies have been programmed to uh, ping it and promote it, and I
Mm-hmm.
can't even tell what's real anymore in terms of even the promotion of Bitcoin. But I have this feeling that it's almost over, that
Right.
the whole Bitcoin sham is about to implode. I mean, I just saw a tweet that that really made me laugh. That Harvard, I mean, do you know how corrupt and stupid Harvard has become? I mean, the whole institution is a joke,
Mm-hmm.
and it used to be the center of study and knowledge and academic freedom and inquisitiveness and trying to find the truth. And now it's what's her name, Claudine Gay, and genital mutilation and all this crazy gender stuff. What the
Yeah.
hell is going on? And one of the reflections of that is that the biggest public position on Harvard's endowment is Bitcoin. Okay. Now when people keep telling me, oh well, Bitcoin is fungible and Bitcoin is divisible and Bitcoin is private and Bitcoin is anonymous. Well, you know what's also divisible and fungible and anonymous and everything that gold is and better? Nothing. You can divide nothing into any unit of nothing, and you can divide and you can nothing is completely fungible. Nothing is perfectly anonymous, and it's
Right.
perfectly private. Okay, but it's nothing. Like you tell me, like the Bitcoin, but they say, oh, the Bitcoin network is information, right? Well, information is something. Well, I mean, information about something is something, but I can give you information about nothing too. For example, give me something that you don't own. Tell me something you don't own.
Platinum.
Okay, so you have nothing of platinum, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I have nothing of platinum. Let's say I had nothing. I have 2 ounces of platinum, but let's say I had nothing of platinum. So now we know that Ivan has no platinum, and Rafi has no platinum. So what information? That's nothing. We both
Right.
have nothing of this thing, which is
Right.
nothing. Okay, so if the Bitcoin network is information about who owns units of Bitcoin, but what the hell is a unit of Bitcoin? A unit of Bitcoin is nothing.
Right.
because
Yes.
it doesn't
Nothing.
represent anything. You have all this infrastructure. It's amazing. It's amazing infrastructure. The genius that went into Bitcoin. Wow, like it's really impressive. But there's nothing inside the damn thing.
Growing skepticism surrounds Bitcoin's true nature. Despite immense technological sophistication, it represents no underlying asset, only units of itself. Unlike fiat currencies, which at least reflect the assets and liabilities of a central bank, Bitcoin has no institution, no balance sheet, and no physical anchor. It's infrastructure without substance. Enthusiasts call it fungible, divisible, and private, but those qualities apply equally to nothing, because nothing can also be divided infinitely. With institutions like Harvard reportedly holding Bitcoin despite their declining credibility, concerns rise that the hype cycle is nearing exhaustion, exposing a network whose remarkable design lacks intrinsic content.
The infrastructure is something, but there's nothing in the infrastructure. If you put something in the infrastructure, then you have something. If you have a network of pipes that are empty, you have nothing. Okay? If you have a network of pipes with water in it, you have plumbing. If you have a network of wires with nothing in it, you have nothing. If you have a network of wires with electricity in it, you have electricity. If you have a network of blockchain that represents nothing, then you have nothing.
Yeah.
That's it. You can have a network of blockchain that represents gold or silver or manure or tables, and then you'd have tables or manure or gold or silver or titles of ownership to parts of the moon, whatever. But
Yeah.
you have in Bitcoin, you have titles of ownership of units of Bitcoin. And what is a Bitcoin? And no one can tell me what the hell the thing is. It's even worse than fiat. Fiat
Yeah.
is something because every central bank manages the fiat supply. And what is the central bank that manages the fiat? The central bank, the fiat currency, the unit of the dollar or the euro is a fraction of everything that central bank owns.
Right,
So
right,
it
right.
represents
There's
everything on the
something
balance
there.
sheet. There's something there. It's something. Most of it is nothing. The debt is nothing because it's going to fall to nothing. But there's still something there. Even if there's no gold on the balance sheet, there is at the Fed. Let's assume it exists. But if it doesn't exist, if there's no gold, let's say that there's no gold on the balance sheet of the Bank of Canada, fine. But the Bank of Canada exists. It's a building, right? They own buildings. There's something there. So it's still something.